It would be a dream for $1 billion plus if it actually happens. Olympics in India. It's one thing to have Olympic dreams though, quite another to turn them into reality. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to reignite those dreams when he meets IOC President Thomas Bach later this month. But will that be enough? That's our top story today, and joining me to talk more about this, I have Sports Secretary Ajit Sharan, while our consulting editor Boria Majumdar joins us from Kolkata. Also joining us on Skype from Lausanne is noted Olympics expert Jean-Luc Chapelet, who has worked with the IOC before as well. But first up, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi all set to meet the IOC President Thomas Bach to discuss the possibility of India bidding for the 2024 Olympics. Question remains, is India ready to stage such a marquee event? Take a look. If Prime Minister Narendra Modi has his way, Mumbai, New Delhi or even Ahmedabad will dance to the tune of the mega sporting spectacle, the Olympics. According to reports, Modi is keen for India to bid for the 2024 Summer Games. Modi will meet International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach later this month to discuss the possibility of India bidding for the Games. India's tryst with major events began in 1951 when India became the first country to host the Asian Games, which came back to Delhi again in 1982. While the country has also hosted the Commonwealth Games in 2010, it was hardly the impression it would have wanted to make as a potential Olympics host. India's only bid to host the mega event for the 1992 Olympics was rejected in the first round itself. For the past few years, India has targeted the 2020 Olympics, but that opportunity slipped through IOA's hands. Even a bid for 2024 seems unrealistic with no groundwork laid yet. There are big question marks over the Indian Olympic Association's ability to mount a credible bid and then ready infrastructure. Also, with Tokyo winning the bid for 2020, another Asian city being chosen for 2024 is unlikely. The Indian Olympics body was suspended for 14 months in 2013 for allowing tainted persons to take part in the election process. The IOC later agreed to the proposal of holding fresh elections after IOA agreed to bar charge-frame persons from contesting the polls. The meeting between Modi and Bach will be a welcome break from the past, but not much can be expected from it. While Modi has already sought details on the costs, financial implications and other factors in hosting such an event, a professionally mounted bid in itself is not an assurance of winning it. The last date to submit the name for bidding is 15 September 2015. Sports Bureau headlines today. So is India's Olympic hosting dreams truly rekindled? Ajit Sharan, Sports Secretary, with us. What would you say? Is this a hope for the future or too early to say anything right now?
Well, you said, this is just... let me first give you the context of President Bach's visit to Delhi in April. It is basically, I would say, a part of an outreach program, and the impression that we got from a recent meeting with him, that the IOC and especially the President is extremely bullish on India, and they want to take the Olympic movement forward. And in this context, what is it that they can do and what kind of initiatives can be taken, and that is the basic focus of his visit here.
But it is too premature to say that there is a bid happening.
I would say yes, and as you said yourself, launching or mounting a bid is not something which can be decided on the spur of a moment. There's a whole lot of hard work, background, spade work which needs to go into it, and especially in the two perspectives which we really have to be kept in mind. Several cities which hosted the Olympics in the recent past, the overhang of the excessive expenditures, etc., they're still facing that. And second is the background and the context of the 2010 Commonwealth Games. So with both these perspectives in mind, we really have to consider this thing from all different angles. Especially, it's not just the expenditure involved, it's our capacity to organize it successfully, and whether we are yet ready for it. So all these considerations have to be taken into account before a formal decision is taken. But yes, definitely, I think the process of, at least the thought process of is started, I would say, and maybe during the meeting of President Bach with the Prime Minister, this can go a little more forward.
This is the first reaction that we're getting from the Sports Ministry, an exclusive here on Headlines Today. Mr. Sharan, before I move to our other guests, would you say in your dealings with the new government, there's a new dispensation in the IOA as well, would you say that Prime Minister Modi is keen that India bids for the 2024 Olympics?
No, as I said, before a decision is taken on bidding it, I'm sure the government and the Prime Minister would like to know in entirety the implications of mounting the bid. And it's not a frivolous bid that we would like to do it. We would like to, the government and the Prime Minister, I'm sure, would like to take a decision only after considering all the aspects involved in it.
So this is just a feelers meeting. You're saying that a bid is not decided right now and cannot even say that it is likely right now. Boria, what does India have to do before it even seriously considers mounting a bid for the Olympics?
You know, firstly, let me say Ajit Sharan makes some very important points there. I mean, I thought he made some really good ones. One, that a bid cannot be decided on the spur of the moment, and India has to be really sure that they can mount a credible bid. The second point that he made was another significant one, that, you know, the meeting is welcome. And that the Prime Minister and Thomas Bach is actually coming because IOC wants to see India play a key role in the Olympic movement and to take Olympic movement forward in India. These are two very welcome signs. What does India need to do? Shivani, we are way behind. The decision will be taken in Lima in 2017, and if you ask Jean-Louis Chapelle, he will tell you, as an Olympic expert, I have worked you know, in this sphere before. To mount a credible bid, it takes 4 to 5 years of work. So in that sense, we are behind. Having said that, if even India decides to bid for 2024, if that gives a fillip to the Olympic movement in India, I would say that's a real welcome change. For me, that is the big aspect of this Modi-Bach meeting, that Olympic sports will be gaining ground in our country and we can aspire to be a multi-sporting nation.
Mr. Jean-Louis Chapelle, he's an Olympic expert, professor at the Sports Management Institute in Lausanne. In your experience, Mr. Chapelle, how early does a country need to start seriously its preparations before it can even dream of launching a bid and winning it?
Well, you should start as early as possible. Of course, 2024 is a bit short because the deadline for 2024 is this year in September. But of course, you never win, or you unusually win at the first bid. You win at the second or third bid,
right?
Like it happened with Pyeongchang or with Tokyo 2020. So India is one of the BRIC countries. Brazil, Russia, and China already hosted the Olympics, the Summer Olympics and the Winter Olympics also. So I think it's better to start as early as possible, even though it is not totally decided, because also nowadays with the new Agenda 2020, which has been proposed by President Bach, it is possible to hold the Olympics in existing facilities. And you certainly have many existing facilities in India. So from that point of view, I would give it a run. It's not only a question of having a good file, it's a question of having a good communication and good lobbying. But communication to the outside world and to the media is absolutely essential, because it's often a question of perception rather than reality.
And it's really the perception battle that India is not doing very well at. Mr. Sharan, would you accept that? What do you think is the biggest roadblock for India before it thinks of seriously mounting a bid? Because when we talk about IOA, even today, there are charge-framed members who've been booted out still attending the executive committee meetings.
Well, I mean, in my recent meeting with President Bach, I think even the IOA has turned a new chapter, and it's probably for the first time that the IOC president has met the government and the IOA representatives together. That itself is a very welcome sign. And I think the IOC itself is extremely positive and extremely bullish about India. And as he said, there's no way you can ignore 1.2 billion people. I mean,
but what is India's biggest roadblock, Mr. Sharan, according to you? Is that perception?
Perception to some extent, but then I think the new government has a great deal of goodwill, a great deal of credibility, And I think the last few months we have seen a fair amount of cordiality between the government and the Olympic movement. So I think the perceptions change. So there was a perception about the dysfunctionality of the Olympic movement in India, but I think that's changing. And with some more effort, both on the part of all the stakeholders, I'm sure there's no reason why we cannot change this perception substantially.
All right, final question to you, Mr. Sharan. Do you think, after everything that you have said and also our other experts, 2028 seems to be more realistic than 2024? Or is 2024 the first target that the government is aiming at, together with the IOA?
Well, let me put it this way. Till some time back, even launching a serious Olympic bid was nowhere, was beyond the radar of any of us. The fact that the government can seriously think of launching a credible bid itself is a major step forward. And if it's decided to go ahead, I'm sure we'll make a fairly serious bid. Whether we get it or not, I think it's a different matter. But launching, as Boria said, a serious bid itself is a major step forward.
All right. So Ajit Sharan assuring the viewers there that perception is changing, how the government and the IOA are functioning are changing, and the government and the IOA are keen to see that the Olympic dream comes to India and comes very, very soon. 2024 perhaps not a realistic target, but we can keep our fingers crossed. Ajit Sharan, so Sports Secretary Boria Majumdar and Jean-Luc Chapelet, thanks a lot for joining us.